Welcome back to the Foundry by Forge College. Okay, let's just dive right into this. In our last explainer, we meticulously set up our monitoring and compliance systems. But today the training wheels come completely off. We are prepping you for the wild, totally unforgiving wilderness of the Solana mainnet. Seriously, watch out for the bears. It's time to talk about risk management, network selection, and the harsh realities of mainnet versus devnet limitations.
Here's our survival guide for today's explainer. We'll be covering surviving the Solana mainnet, 5 crucial mainnet limitations, a real-world risk example, the risk register workflow, and finally, getting ready for deployment scripts. Let's hit it.
Section 1. Surviving the Solana mainnet, sandbox versus the Wild West.
So before we write even a single line of deployment code, we really need a massive mindset shift about the environment we're actually stepping into. Look, Devnet is essentially a padded room, right? Mistakes are completely free, traffic is incredibly polite, and you get unlimited undos. It's a really nice, forgiving sandbox. But Mainnet is a high-speed, deafeningly noisy highway during rush hour. Out there, your errors cost real, actual money, and state changes are forever. It is literally the Wild West.
All right, Section 2. 5 crucial mainnet limitations. We like to call these the boss mechanics of mainnet.
Think of these 5 limitations as the boss mechanics of a video game. If you don't learn their attack patterns, your flawless devnet code is going to crash and burn in a very quick game over. Number 1. Rate limits. This is where your rapid-fire requests get brutally throttled. Number 2. Fee variability. Get ready for completely unpredictable cost spikes based on network congestion. Third is ledger permanence. There is absolutely no undo button here, guys. Fourth, adversarial traffic. Basically, spam and bots actively trying to front-run you. And fifth, observability gaps. This is where your nice deep debug traces suddenly get cut short just to save on storage. These are absolutely the 5 villains of our story.
Now check out how these completely benign devnet behaviors morph into mainnet nightmares. On devnet, rate limits are super lenient. They allow massive throughput. But on mainnet, boom, you face brutal throttling and failed RPC calls under heavy load. The mitigation for that? Well, you're going to need batching, caching, or a dedicated RPC provider. Same exact thing for fee variability. It's totally negligible on devnet. But on mainnet, those unpredictable cost spikes mean you have to implement strict fee budgeting. Every single one of these constraints demands a specific budgeted mitigation before you even think about deploying.
Moving on to Section 3, a real-world risk example using an on-chain indexing service.
Let's ground all this abstract stuff with a slightly painful, totally real-world scenario. Imagine we deploy this beautiful Solana-backed on-chain indexing service straight to mainnet. In our sandbox, latency was incredibly low, and all of our data fetches succeeded perfectly. But what exactly breaks when we unleash it into the wild without mitigations?
Well, spoiler alert, it is not pretty.
First thing out of the gate, we smash right into an invisible wall. RPC rate limiting. Network providers will literally throttle or terminate your rapid data requests just to protect their own limited servers. So during startup, our indexer tries to open a ton of concurrent subscriptions, and the mainnet provider simply slaps our hand away. They enforce per-minute call limits, they drop idle connections, and suddenly, we are drowning in massive data backlogs.
And man, the cascading failure just continues from there. Things go sideways so rapidly. Because of that RPC throttling, we start dropping crucial events. Then, the indexer tries to write small state updates to the chain to signal progress. On devnet, those confirmed instantly for practically nothing. But here, sudden fee spikes delay or completely block those optimistic writes. And to make matters even worse, when we actually try to debug why our app is stalling out, shortened traces and retention limits completely hide the root cause. We are literally flying blind in a storm here.
Section 4. The risk register workflow. This is all about equipping your survival gear.
Okay, but don't panic. Instead of just crossing our fingers and hoping for the best, we are going to build a risk register. Think of this as your ultimate survival manual. It's a documented checklist mapping every single potential deployment failure to a specific monitoring control. It ensures that every disaster has a concrete, budgeted mitigation plan before you even begin scripting. We're going to tackle this in 4 steps. First, we inventory absolutely every feature that touches limits, fees, or irreversible state. Second, we translate those into plain English risks. Something like indexer subscription might be dropped under throttling. Third, we map mitigations, like adding a fallback RPC to specific controls.
And fourth, we prioritize the budget. If you simply can't afford repeated, expensive mainnet tests, you have to record that as a residual risk and choose a private staging network instead.
To make sure those mitigations aren't just empty promises, we really need acceptance criteria. These act as the strict pass-or-fail thresholds that prove our safety gear will actually hold up under real pressure. For instance, validating that a synthetic transaction confirms within 10 seconds under a simulated heavy load. Your deployment scripts are going to actively use these exact criteria as strict gating mechanisms.
Then we cross the finish line with the final steps. Step 5 is finalizing incident playbooks and assigning clear owners. This way, someone is absolutely accountable if things go wrong. Step 6 is writing those strict acceptance tests we literally just talked about. And step 7 is assembling the final artifact, your risk register, along with a solid, audible justification for your chosen rehearsal network. This right here is your concrete proof that you didn't just wing it.
Section 5. Ready for deployment scripts. Bridging to the next step. By completing this rigorous checklist, you've transformed all those abstract fears into highly actionable engineering inputs. Look at what you've accomplished here. You now possess a succinct, incredibly powerful artifact. You've got documented risks with assigned owners. You have mitigations mapped directly to compliance controls. You've got pass-fail acceptance tests ready to gate your scripts. And you have an auditable network selection choice. This single artifact dictates exactly whether you should run a final rehearsal on Mainnet, use a private staging cluster, or just stick entirely to Devnet for now.
Which brings us to the ultimate takeaway for today's explainer. Quote, treat mainnet constraints as hard inputs to deployment design rather than as post hoc inconveniences. End quote. Seriously, don't wait until things break to care about rate limits and fees. You've got to build them in from day one. Doing this perfectly sets you up for our next explainer, where we're going to use your risk decisions to actually design reliable deployment strips.
And that wraps up our survival guide. This explainer was brought to you by Forge College. Head over to forge.college to explore a ton more Web3 resources, dive deeper into the nuances of Solana deployment, and continue your journey. But before you go, ask yourself this. If you deployed your current Devnet code to Mainnet today, right now, which boss mechanic would bankrupt your project first? Think about it. Stay curious, stay structured, and I'll see you in the next one.